Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you desperately wanted people to like you, only to realize later that you sacrificed your self-respect in the process? That uncomfortable feeling of having betrayed your own values just to win someone's approval is something many of us know all too well. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. We live in a world obsessed with being liked. Social media has amplified this need with its likes, hearts, and followers becoming the currency of social validation. But what if I told you that chasing approval might be the very thing preventing you from gaining genuine respect? Stay with me as we explore this powerful idea that could fundamentally change how you approach your relationships. The paradox of respect is fascinating. The more desperately you try to make people like you, the less they tend to respect you. Think about those people in your life who command genuine respect. Are they constantly seeking approval? Are they people-pleasers who bend over backward to accommodate everyone else's wishes? Rarely. Has this ever happened to you? You compromise on something important just to keep the peace, only to feel that subtle yet unmistakable shift, where the other person seems to value your opinion less afterward. This isn't coincidental. It's a pattern as old as human social dynamics themselves. The renowned political philosopher Machiavelli provocatively suggested that if a leader must choose between being feared or being loved, being feared is the more secure option. While this might sound extreme, there's a kernel of wisdom here about the fragility of affection versus the stability of respect. When people merely like you, their feelings can change with the wind. But genuine respect has staying power. What you're about to discover might surprise you. Respect often comes not from accommodation, but from boundaries, from knowing what you stand for and being willing to stand firm, even when it's uncomfortable. The most respected individuals don't seek approval. They earn respect through consistency, integrity, and the courage to occasionally disappoint others rather than betray themselves. This doesn't mean becoming callous or inconsiderate. Rather, it suggests a fundamental reorientation in how we approach our interactions. Instead of asking, will this make them like me more? What if we asked, is this consistent with who I am and what I believe in? The irony is that when you stop chasing approval and start living authentically, something unexpected happens. Hit subscribe to continue your confidence journey with new insights every day. Approval-seeking behavior creates a dangerous cycle that many don't recognize. When you're constantly looking for validation, you become extraordinarily predictable. People know exactly which buttons to push to get you to react in certain ways. This predictability gradually turns you into something disposable in others' eyes. They know they can manipulate your emotions, decisions, and actions with minimal effort. Think about the people you genuinely respect in your life. What do they all have in common? Strong, unapologetic boundaries. They don't bend their values for temporary approval. They won't sacrifice their time, energy, or principles just to be liked. This unwavering commitment to their boundaries creates a natural aura of respect around them. The transformation from approval seeker to respect commander isn't immediate, but it's one of the most impactful journeys you can undertake. When you set clear boundaries, you're essentially telling the world, this is where I stand, regardless of your opinion. Initially, this stance might ruffle some feathers, especially among those who benefited from your previous people-pleasing tendencies. But here's the hidden truth many don't discuss. Respect isn't built on grand gestures, but on small, consistent acts of self-respect. It's saying no when you need to, even when it's uncomfortable. It's expressing your honest opinion, even when it differs from the group. It's valuing your time enough to protect it from unnecessary demands. The irony is that by not seeking approval, you often gain something far more valuable: authentic connection. When people know where you stand, they can choose to connect with the real you, not some carefully crafted version designed to please. Social media has complicated this dynamic even further. With likes, comments, and shares quantifying approval, many have fallen deeper into the validation trap. The algorithms literally reward predictable content that generates engagement, further reinforcing our instinct to seek approval rather than command. Respect. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how setting boundaries might initially feel selfish, but is actually one of the most generous things you can do for your relationships. When you establish clear boundaries, you're offering others the gift of authenticity. They know exactly where they stand with you, which creates a foundation for genuine trust. If you're nodding along to these revelations about boundaries and respect, write in the comments, "Boundaries create freedom," because that's exactly what happens when you stop chasing approval and start commanding respect. Approval seekers inadvertently hand over control to others. Think about what happens when your decisions hinge on whether someone will approve. You're no longer the author of your own story. You've become a character in someone else's narrative. This surrender of power happens so subtly that many don't even realize the transformation taking place within them. True respect is built on the principle of consequences. When you establish clear boundaries and follow through with meaningful consequences, people begin to understand the framework of your relationship. It's not about punishment or manipulation, it's about integrity. The hidden truth here is that most people confuse being liked with being respected, yet they occupy completely different territories in human interaction. I remember working with a client, Sarah, who was constantly walking on eggshells around her team. She'd avoid confrontation at all costs, agree to unreasonable deadlines, and take on others' responsibilities, all to maintain her image as the nice boss. The revelation came when her team started missing important deadlines without apology or concern. They didn't respect her timeline because there were never any consequences for ignoring it. Her journey toward earning respect began when she started holding people accountable. This might sound counterintuitive in our connection-obsessed world, but meaningful relationships aren't built on constant agreement. They're built on authentic exchanges where both parties know where they stand. Behind the scenes of every strong relationship, professional or personal, is this understanding of boundaries and consequences. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this plays out in everyday scenarios. Most people struggle with establishing consequences because they fear damaging relationships. But here's the fascinating paradox. Properly implemented consequences actually strengthen your connections rather than weaken them. When you clearly communicate your boundaries and the results of crossing them, you're giving others a roadmap to interact with you successfully. Consider how children thrive with clear boundaries. They may push against them, but that structure provides security and understanding of their world. Adults aren't so different. We all seek to understand the rules of engagement in our relationships. The impact of undefined boundaries creates anxiety and confusion, while clear ones create trust and safety. Subscribe now and never miss our deep dives into overcoming social anxiety. The real mindset shift happens when you realize that setting consequences isn't about controlling others. It's about controlling your own involvement and response. You're not dictating what others can do, you're clarifying what you will do in response to their choices. This distinction represents the fundamental difference between manipulation and healthy boundary setting. If any of this resonates with your own experiences, type "boundaries create freedom" in the comments below. I'd love to know if you're recognizing these patterns in your own life. You know what fascinates me about those who break free from approval seeking? They rediscover their authentic voice. When you're constantly monitoring how others might perceive your words or actions, you're essentially living with an internal committee that must vote on everything you do. It's exhausting and leaves little energy for actual creation and expression. Think about the last time you had a brilliant idea but hesitated to share it because you feared judgment. That hesitation is the tax we pay when we prioritize others' opinions over our own truth. The most influential people throughout history, from artists to entrepreneurs to social revolutionaries, share one common trait. They were willing to be misunderstood, sometimes for years, before their vision was appreciated. The journey toward internal validation is truly transformative. I've witnessed people who once frantically checked their social media likes every few minutes eventually develop such strong inner conviction that external metrics become mere footnotes rather than defining factors. This shift doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual recalibration of your personal navigation system. What's particularly fascinating is how approval addiction functions almost identically to chemical dependencies. The dopamine hit from receiving validation creates the same neurological pathways as other addictive behaviors. And just like those other dependencies, the satisfaction diminishes over time, requiring more and more approval to achieve the same emotional high. Behind the scenes of every great personal revolution is this moment of reckoning where someone decides, I will no longer outsource my self-worth. That decision marks the beginning of authentic power. When your actions stem from personal conviction rather than anticipated applause, you access a wellspring of creativity and courage that was previously dammed by fear. The hidden truth here is that those who seem most immune to criticism aren't necessarily tougher. They're simply clearer about their own values. They've done the internal work to establish personal metrics for success that don't fluctuate with public opinion. This clarity becomes a compass that guides them through both praise and criticism with equal steadiness. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the practical steps toward building this kind of internal validation system. Because while understanding the concept intellectually is one thing, implementing it in your daily life requires specific mental frameworks and habits that most people never develop. If what I've shared resonates with your own experiences navigating the complex territory between personal truth and social acceptance, write "Finding My Compass" in the comments below. But it's not just about limiting your words, it's about maximizing their impact when you do speak. Think about the people you truly respect in your life. I bet they're not the ones who dominate every conversation with endless chatter. They're likely the ones who, when they do speak, deliver thoughts that carry weight and substance. This principle extends far beyond just personal relationships. In professional settings, the transformation is even more pronounced. I've witnessed meetings where the quietest person in the room suddenly becomes the center of attention the moment they decide to contribute. Why? Because their scarcity creates value. Their words haven't been diluted by constant exposure. There's a hidden truth here about human psychology that few people consciously recognize. We instinctively assign more importance to things that are rare or limited. It's the same mechanism that makes us value gold more than iron, despite iron being far more useful in practical terms. We're wired to pay special attention to what's scarce. Your attention is perhaps your most valuable currency in today's world. When you distribute it carefully and intentionally, you're essentially telling others, I value my thoughts enough to share them only when they matter. That signals self-respect, which paradoxically makes others more likely to respect you as well. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring the actual journey of implementing this approach. It's not simple at first. Many of us have been conditioned to fill silences, to demonstrate our value through constant verbal contribution. The initial discomfort of holding back can feel almost physical, like an itch you're not allowing yourself to scratch. but push through this discomfort and you'll begin to notice subtle shifts in how people respond to you. You'll find yourself having more influence despite speaking less. Your recommendations carry more weight. Your opinions generate more consideration. Your presence becomes more commanding without you having to command anything at all. This isn't about manipulation or playing mind games. It's about authentic alignment with your own value. It's understanding that your insights deserve to be treated as precious, not because you're trying to create an artificial persona, but because genuinely meaningful communication should be respected, both by you and by others. If you're nodding along to what I'm saying, thinking, "This approach actually makes sense to me," drop that phrase in the comments. I'd love to know if this resonates with your experiences or if you've seen this principle play out in your own life. When you become predictable, you hand over control of your life to those who can anticipate your moves. Think about it. If someone knows exactly how you'll react in every situation, they can manipulate circumstances to their advantage while you're left wondering how they continuously outmaneuver you. This unpredictability isn't about being erratic. It's about maintaining your strategic autonomy. Machiavelli observed that powerful leaders throughout history understood something profound. Respect often comes from how decisively you defend your boundaries. When someone crosses a line with you, that swift response doesn't just address the current situation. It sends ripples through all your future interactions. There's a hidden transformation that happens in that moment. Others witness how you handle disrespect and calibrate their behavior accordingly. I've seen this principle play out in my own relationships and business dealings. Once, a client repeatedly missed deadlines while expecting me to maintain mine. Instead of the typical passive response, I clearly communicated the impact of their actions and implemented immediate consequences. The relationship dynamics shifted permanently, not through conflict, but through clarity. This single decision altered how every interaction proceeded afterward. This boundary setting isn't about aggression, it's about clarity of communication and consistency of action. When your words and actions align, you create a predictable framework within which others can operate safely, while maintaining the unpredictability of your specific moves within that framework. It's similar to how chess masters operate. The rules are clear, but their specific strategies remain their own. The psychological journey here is fascinating. We often avoid enforcing boundaries because we fear conflict or rejection. But Machiavelli understood that this avoidance ultimately creates more problems than it solves. The momentary discomfort of addressing a boundary violation pales in comparison to the long-term erosion of respect that comes from allowing it repeatedly. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these principles apply differently across various relationships in your life. The fascinating revelation is how the same fundamental truths can manifest uniquely depending on context, whether in professional environments, personal relationships, or even casual interactions. Have you noticed this pattern in your own life? If this perspective on boundaries and predictability resonates with your experiences, write "Boundaries create freedom" in the comments below. Being selective with your energy isn't just good advice, it's essential for transformation in today's overwhelming world. Think about it. Every time you say yes to something, you're simultaneously saying no to countless other possibilities. This hidden truth about energy allocation is something the most successful people understand intuitively. When you scatter your focus across too many commitments, relationships, or projects, you're essentially diluting your impact. It's like trying to water an entire garden with a single bucket. Nothing gets enough to truly flourish. This selective approach isn't about being cold or calculating. It's about honoring the finite nature of your most precious resources, your time and attention. The companion to this selective mindset is emotional detachment, something often misunderstood as indifference. But there's a profound difference. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't allow your emotions to hijack your reasoning. It's the ability to step back from the swirling vortex of feelings and observe the situation with clarity. Picture yourself in a heated argument with someone important to you. When emotionally entangled, you might say things you don't mean or make decisions you'll regret. But with emotional detachment, you create space between the trigger and your response. In that space lies your freedom to choose a more intentional path forward. This skill becomes particularly valuable during life's inevitable crossroads. Major decisions about careers, relationships, or personal growth benefit immensely from this balanced perspective. You begin to see options that would otherwise be obscured by emotional fog. Your decisions become grounded in reality rather than reactivity. The journey toward mastering these twin skills, selective energy investment and emotional detachment, isn't always straightforward. There will be moments of regression, times when you find yourself overcommitted or emotionally reactive. But with practice, these moments become less frequent and their grip on you loosens. What's fascinating is how these principles create a positive feedback loop in your life. As you become more selective with your energy, you naturally have more resources for the things that truly matter. This abundance then makes emotional detachment easier because you're not operating from a place of scarcity or desperation. Now, I want to go even deeper into how these principles can be applied to specific areas of your life, from professional growth to personal relationships and beyond. The revelations that come from this practice often surprise even those who've been applying these concepts for years. If what I've shared resonates with your own experience or aspirations, write mindful detachment in the comments. I'm curious how many of you are already practicing these principles in your daily life. People we deeply respect often maintain a certain distance, not physical separation, but an emotional boundary that signals they aren't desperately seeking approval. Have you noticed how the most respected individuals in your life aren't constantly checking if you like them? This subtle detachment creates a magnetic pull that commands genuine respect. The hidden truth about commanding respect is that it requires breaking what I call the approval addiction, that compelling need to be liked by everyone around you. This addiction manifests in countless small behaviors: changing your opinion to match the room, laughing at jokes you don't find funny, or avoiding necessary conflict to maintain surface-level harmony. This journey toward genuine respect demands a profound mindset shift. Instead of asking, "Will they like me?" the essential question becomes, "Am I aligned with my values?" This transformation isn't about becoming cold or uncaring, quite the opposite. It's about developing the inner security to maintain your core principles even when facing social pressure. Think about the people you most admire. They likely possess this rare quality, a willingness to stand firm when necessary, even if it temporarily creates tension. They understand that authentic connection emerges from showing up as your genuine self rather than a carefully curated version designed to maximize likability. Behind the scenes of respect development, you'll discover that the most respected individuals don't waste energy monitoring others' opinions of them. They've redirected that mental bandwidth toward matters of genuine importance: their work, relationships, and impact. This doesn't mean they lack awareness or empathy, but rather that they've liberated themselves from the exhausting cycle of constant validation seeking. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how respect and boundaries intertwine in fascinating ways. When you establish clear boundaries around your time, energy, and values, you signal something powerful to others. You communicate that you value yourself enough to protect these precious resources. This self-valuation creates a foundation upon which others build their respect for you. The revelation many don't realize is that respect flows naturally when you stop chasing it directly. Like happiness, respect tends to arrive as a byproduct of living authentically rather than as the result of specific techniques designed to manufacture it. When you live with integrity, speak honestly, and maintain healthy boundaries, respect typically follows without deliberate effort. If you're nodding along with these ideas, write "Boundaries build respect" in the comments below. Machiavelli's profound understanding of human nature reveals a timeless truth. Respect is earned through consistency and boundaries, not through desperate attempts to be liked. When we examine the relationships in our lives, we can see this principle at work. People who constantly bend to please others often find themselves not beloved but taken for granted. The journey toward genuine respect requires embracing uncomfortable realities. Think about that colleague who can't say no, who's always accommodating everyone else's needs. Initially, people appreciate their helpfulness, but over time they become an expectation rather than a valued ally. Their boundaries are non-existent, and ironically, respect diminishes. This transformation in how others perceive us happens subtly. The prince who wishes to maintain power must understand this hidden dynamic. It's not about cruelty or manipulation, but about the courage to stand firm in your convictions. When you consistently honor your own boundaries, you teach others how to treat you. This is the essence of Machiavellian wisdom that transcends politics and applies directly to our everyday interactions. Consider the revelation that occurs when someone who always said yes finally says no. There's often shock, sometimes outrage. But you always, people might say. This reaction illuminates the underlying truth. They weren't respecting you. They were simply accustomed to your compliance. The impact of shifting from approval-seeking to respect, commanding, is profound. Relationships realign. Some may fall away, unable to adjust to your newfound backbone. Others will develop a deeper appreciation for who you truly are. This isn't about becoming cold or distant, but rather about being authentic even when it's uncomfortable. Behind the scenes of every strong relationship lies this foundation of mutual respect. The paradox is that by being willing to be disliked sometimes, you become more deeply valued overall. Your words carry weight because they reflect your true thoughts rather than what you believe others want to hear. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how this principle applies in different contexts. From professional settings to intimate relationships, the principles remain consistent, but the application requires nuance and understanding of human psychology. If what I'm saying resonates with your own experiences of finding more respect when you stop trying so hard to be liked, write in the comments, "Respect over approval." I'd love to know if you've noticed this pattern in your own life. When we constantly explain our choices to others, we surrender a piece of our power each time. This subtle form of self-sabotage happens so gradually that most people don't even recognize the transformation occurring within their relationships. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how certain people in your life seem to command respect without demanding it? That's because they've mastered the art of self-validation. The hidden truth here is that our need to explain ourselves often stems from childhood conditioning. Most of us were raised in environments where we had to justify our feelings, our decisions, and sometimes even our existence. This created a neural pathway that equates acceptance with explanation. But here's the revelation. Adults who command respect have broken this pattern. I've witnessed incredible shifts in people's lives when they embrace this mindset. One client of mine, who constantly felt undermined at work, began implementing this principle of not over-explaining her decisions. Within weeks, she noticed her colleagues approaching her differently, with more consideration and respect for her boundaries. What's fascinating about this journey towards self-validation is how it ripples through every aspect of your life. When you stop seeking external approval, you begin making decisions aligned with your true self rather than what will please others, this authenticity becomes magnetic, drawing people toward your certainty rather than away from it. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining what happens in the brain when we stop the explanation cycle. The psychological impact is profound. When we explain ourselves, we're actually in a defensive posture. Neurologically speaking, we're operating from our limbic system, the emotional center responsible for fear responses. But when we stand confidently in our decisions without justification, we engage our prefrontal cortex, the executive function center associated with leadership qualities. This shift from reactive to proactive thinking completely transforms how others perceive us. It's not about becoming cold or dismissive, quite the opposite. It's about valuing your own perspective enough to present it as valid without needing to convince others. This quiet confidence speaks volumes where excessive words fail. If this concept resonates with your experiences, write in the comments, "I'm reclaiming my power." I'd love to know how many of you recognize this pattern in your own lives. The most fascinating aspect of this approval addiction is that it doesn't just affect our social lives, it fundamentally alters our decision-making process. When we're constantly seeking validation, we become predictable, and predictability makes us easy to manipulate. Think about it. If someone can accurately predict how you'll respond to criticism or praise, they essentially hold the keys to your behavior. This predictability becomes a form of modern slavery that most don't recognize. Unlike physical chains, these psychological bonds are invisible yet incredibly powerful. They dictate where we go, what we say, and even what we allow ourselves to think. The journey toward personal freedom begins with recognizing these invisible restraints. I've witnessed this transformation in my own life. There was a time when I would rehearse conversations in my head, carefully calculating what would make me appear intelligent or likable. The mental exhaustion was immense, yet I couldn't see the cage I had built around myself. The revelation came during a period of deep reflection, when I realized that my life decisions, from my career path to my personal relationships, were being filtered through the question, what will others think? Behind the scenes of every approval-seeking behavior is an unaddressed fear. For some, it's the fear of rejection. For others, it's the terror of being seen as incompetent. Whatever form it takes, this fear becomes the shadow director of your life's movie, influencing scenes you're not even consciously aware of. What's particularly striking is how this mindset creates a false sense of connection. We believe we're building meaningful relationships, but in reality, we're constructing elaborate facades. True connection only happens when we allow ourselves to be seen, genuinely seen, with all our imperfections and uncertainties. The hidden truth that many don't want to acknowledge is that liberation from approval-seeking doesn't mean becoming inconsiderate or selfish. In fact, it often leads to more authentic generosity because your actions stem from genuine intention rather than the anticipated reward of approval. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how breaking free from approval addiction actually enhances your impact in both personal and professional spheres. When you're no longer operating from a place of constant validation seeking, something remarkable happens to your creative capacity and leadership potential. If any of this resonates with your own experience, write "Breaking My Invisible Chains" in the comments below. When you surrender control over your own identity, you create a vacuum that others will gladly fill with their agendas. This isn't some abstract concept. It's the hidden reality playing out in countless interactions every day. What fascinates me is how predictable this pattern becomes once you recognize it. The psychology behind respect-demanding techniques is surprisingly universal. Whether it's the colleague who subtly undermines you in meetings or the family member who uses guilt as currency, the underlying mechanisms remain consistent. They're targeting fundamental human needs: belonging, validation, and security. These are psychological pressure points that, when pressed correctly, can make even the most independent thinker surrender their autonomy. I've witnessed the transformation in people who suddenly realize they've been unconsciously relinquishing their personal power. It's like watching someone wake up from a long sleep. They start questioning why they tolerate certain behaviors, why they shrink themselves to please others, why they've accepted a diminished version of themselves for so long. What's truly eye-opening is recognizing that respect isn't actually what manipulators want. It's compliance. True respect emerges from mutual recognition of boundaries and personhood. What these techniques actually cultivate is fear disguised as deference. The journey toward authentic self-respect begins with this crucial distinction. Behind the scenes of every interaction where you feel diminished lies a choice point you might not be recognizing. These moments aren't just uncomfortable exchanges. They're crossroads where you decide whether to honor yourself or surrender to external pressure. The remarkable thing is how reclaiming these decision points creates ripple effects through all your relationships. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining the specific ways manipulators operate and how you can develop an internal compass that remains steady regardless of the social pressures you face. Because understanding the mechanics of manipulation doesn't just help you avoid being controlled, it fundamentally changes how you navigate the world. The revelation here isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about discovering how much more authentic your connections become when they're built on genuine respect rather than power dynamics. When you stop participating in these games, you create space for something much more meaningful. If what I'm saying resonates with your own experiences, write "Boundaries Matter" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have noticed these patterns in your own lives. As we make these changes in our lives, it's important to understand that respect isn't just something we receive, it's an energy we cultivate and share with the world. When you start implementing these principles consistently, you'll notice a fascinating transformation in how people respond to you. It's almost like they can sense the shift in your internal landscape before you've even spoken a word. I've witnessed this journey countless times with people who've applied these techniques. They often report back with stories that sound almost magical. Colleagues who previously interrupted them now listen attentively. Friends who took them for granted now value their time, and even strangers interact with them differently. This isn't coincidence. It's the natural outcome of the respect resonance you're creating. One revelation that many don't expect is how this journey affects your decision-making abilities. When you command respect, you develop a clearer sense of boundaries, what deserves your energy and what doesn't. This clarity becomes your hidden superpower in both professional and personal environments. You'll find yourself making choices aligned with your true worth rather than from a place of seeking approval. The impact extends beyond individual interactions. Your entire social ecosystem begins to recalibrate around this new standard you've established. People who cannot meet you at this level of mutual respect naturally drift to the periphery of your life, while those who appreciate authentic connections are drawn closer. This natural filtering process is one of the most valuable, if unexpected, benefits of the respect journey. What's particularly fascinating is how this work creates a ripple effect. As you embody these principles, you unconsciously give permission to others to do the same. I've seen entire family dynamics shift when just one person begins this practice genuinely. Teams at work become more collaborative. Friendships deepen in authenticity. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how these respect principles intersect with the most challenging relationships in your life. Because, let's be honest, it's one thing to command respect from new acquaintances, but quite another to transform long-established patterns with those who have known you for years. The mindset shift required here is subtle but profound. It involves understanding that respect isn't something you demand through words, but rather something you embody through consistent actions. It means recognizing that even your most difficult relationships contain valuable lessons that contribute to your growth in this area. If any of these insights have resonated with your own experiences, type "respect starts within" in the comments. I'm curious to know who among you has already begun noticing these patterns in your own interactions. Respect is better commanded than demanded. Genuine relationships emerge from mutual respect, not one-sided approval seeking. This principle reveals a profound truth about human connection. When we desperately seek approval, we paradoxically push it further away. Think about the people in your life who naturally command your respect. They rarely, if ever, explicitly ask for it, do they? The journey toward commanding respect begins with self-respect. When you honor your own boundaries, time, and values, you create an invisible force field around yourself that others instinctively recognize. It's like a silent language that communicates your worth without saying a word. I've witnessed this transformation countless times. People who once bent over backward for validation eventually discovered that their desperate pursuit was precisely what repelled others. The moment they began respecting themselves enough to walk away from disrespectful situations, something magical happened. Others started respecting them too. Behind the scenes of every strong relationship lies this hidden foundation of mutual respect. It's never about power plays or control. Rather, it's about two individuals who recognize each other's inherent value. Consider how respect manifests in your daily interactions. When someone consistently arrives late to your meetings, do you repeatedly accommodate them while harboring resentment? Or do you respectfully establish that your time matters? The decision you make in these seemingly small moments shapes how others perceive and treat you. The revelation that changed everything for me was understanding that respect isn't something you chase. It's something you embody. It's reflected in how you speak, how you listen, and critically, in what you tolerate. Every time you allow someone to cross your boundaries, you're teaching them how to treat you. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this principle applies in different relationship contexts. The impact of commanded respect varies dramatically between personal relationships, professional environments, and even casual interactions with strangers. What remains consistent is that authentic respect cannot be forced. It must be earned through integrity and consistency. The mindset shift required here isn't about becoming rigid or unapproachable. Rather, it's about developing such clarity about your worth that others naturally align with it. This isn't about ego, it's about truth. And when you operate from this place of truth, relationships transform from exhausting approval-seeking missions to genuine connections based on mutual appreciation. If this resonates with your own experience of relationships, type "respect is earned" in the comments below. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic of boundaries and self-worth, because what most people miss is the transformational power that comes from consistency in this practice. When someone crosses your boundary the first time and you respond swiftly, you're not just addressing that isolated incident, you're reshaping the entire dynamic of that relationship. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how the people who consistently demand the most respect in their lives rarely have to raise their voice or make grand statements? That's because they've cultivated a profound understanding of their worth that radiates from within. It's like an invisible shield that others can sense before they even consider testing those boundaries. What fascinates me most about this journey is how it ripples through every aspect of your life. The colleague who stops interrupting you in meetings, suddenly. starts recommending you for leadership opportunities. The friend who constantly cancelled plans begins prioritizing your time together. These aren't coincidences, they're direct revelations of how others perceive your self-valuation. I worked with someone who spent years being the yes person at their workplace. They'd take on extra projects, work weekends, answer emails at midnight, all without recognition or compensation. The turning point came when they simply started saying, "I'd be happy to help with that project, but I'll need to adjust my other deadlines accordingly." No drama, no lengthy explanations, just a calm acknowledgement of their worth and time. Within 3 months, they received their first promotion in 5 years. The hidden truth here is that maintaining boundaries isn't actually about saying no, it's about creating space for authentic yes moments. When you're not depleted from overextending yourself in relationships that don't serve you, you have the energy to fully embrace the connections and opportunities that align with your values. Remember that your boundaries aren't just protecting you, they're communications to the world about how to engage with you meaningfully. Every time you maintain a boundary, you're not just making a decision for yourself in that moment. You're establishing a pattern that others will follow in future interactions. This mindset shift requires patience with yourself. Years of people-pleasing or conflict avoidance don't disappear overnight. There will be moments of discomfort as you recalibrate your relationships. But this discomfort is the birthplace of your personal growth, the space where you're actively rewriting outdated scripts about your worth. If this resonates with your own experience, write "boundaries to freedom" in the comments below. Now, as we continue exploring this topic, let's examine the specific language patterns that strengthen your boundary-setting practice. Confidence grows through self-validation, not external validation. It's a profound realization that many overlook in their journey toward personal growth. When you rely on others to affirm your worth, you're essentially placing your emotional well-being in hands that may not always be gentle with it. The hidden truth is that genuine confidence comes from within, from acknowledging your own achievements, recognizing your progress, and honoring your personal journey. This internal validation creates a foundation that's significantly more stable than gathering compliments or seeking approval from others. Think about it. Even the most well-intentioned people in your life will sometimes be too caught up in their own challenges to offer the validation you might be seeking. And that's perfectly normal. It's part of the human experience. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how Machiavellian principles intersect with this concept of self-validation. Machiavelli wasn't just writing about political power. He was outlining a framework for strategic interactions that applies to everyday life. These principles focus on understanding the reality of human behavior rather than idealized versions of how people should act. There's a profound wisdom in this approach. When you see people as they are, complex, sometimes self-interested, occasionally unreliable, you stop expecting them to be constant sources of validation. This perspective shift represents a transformation in how you navigate relationships. Instead of measuring your worth through others' reactions, you begin to recognize that strategic self-reliance is not just powerful, it's necessary for emotional resilience. The impact of embracing self-validation extends far beyond just feeling good about yourself. It changes how you make decisions, how you respond to criticism, and how you celebrate your victories. Small wins become meaningful because you've acknowledged them, not because someone else noticed. This mindset doesn't mean becoming isolated or dismissive of positive feedback. Rather, it means receiving external validation as a pleasant bonus rather than a crucial necessity. The distinction is subtle, but represents a profound shift in your relationship with yourself. When you combine this self-validating approach with strategic awareness of social dynamics, you develop a powerful perspective that helps you navigate complex interpersonal situations without losing your sense of self. You begin recognizing when others are projecting their insecurities onto you, when praise is sincere versus manipulative, and when criticism contains valuable insights versus simply reflecting someone else's limitations. If this perspective on self-validation resonates with your experiences, write "inner confidence" in the comments. I'm curious how many of you have already been developing this mindset in your own lives. Respect runs so much deeper than seeking validation from others. It's really about maintaining our personal worth regardless of who acknowledges it. When I first understood this revelation, it transformed how I navigate social dynamics completely. Think about it. How often do we adjust our behaviors hoping to gain someone's approval? It's almost a hidden truth of human interaction that we rarely discuss openly. The moment we stop chasing validation is the moment we truly begin to command authentic respect. What's fascinating is how this connects to the concept of selective engagement. There's incredible power in being intentional about where and with whom we invest our energy. Not every person, situation, or comment deserves your mental real estate. This isn't about being dismissive, it's about making conscious decisions about what influences your peace of mind. I've noticed a profound impact in my own journey when I started practicing this mindfulness about my interactions. The quality of my relationships improved dramatically when I stopped feeling obligated to engage with every negative comment or criticism thrown my way. It's like clearing mental clutter that was taking up space I didn't even realize was occupied. Behind the scenes of every respectful interaction is this fundamental understanding. My worth isn't determined by others' opinions of me. When we truly internalize this, we stop the exhausting cycle of people-pleasing and start living more authentically. What's particularly powerful about selective engagement is how it shifts control back to you. You're no longer at the mercy of others' judgments or casual remarks. Instead, you become the curator of your own experience, choosing what deserves your attention and what doesn't. The beauty of this approach is that it doesn't require confrontation or conflict. You don't need to announce your boundaries, you simply need to honor them. This quiet confidence speaks volumes and often earns more genuine respect than any defensive reaction ever could. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by exploring how this mindset completely transforms not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. Because the real magic happens when your self-perception shifts. If this perspective on respect resonates with your own experience, write "inner peace" first in the comments. Real confidence operates from a place of quiet assurance, not needing external validation to feel secure. Think about someone you know who carries themselves with this genuine confidence. They don't dominate conversations or put others down to elevate themselves. Instead, they listen attentively, admit when they're wrong, and stand firm in their boundaries without apologizing for their existence. Contrast this with fake confidence, that loud, sometimes aggressive energy that demands attention rather than earning it naturally. We've all encountered people who interrupt constantly, dismiss others' ideas, or center every conversation around themselves. This behavior doesn't signal strength, but reveals deep-seated insecurity. The transformation happens when we recognize which pattern we're following. Many of us fluctuate between these states depending on the situation or who we're with. The journey toward authentic confidence begins with this awareness. What's fascinating is how these different expressions of confidence impact our relationships. When we operate from real confidence, we create space for genuine connection. We don't feel threatened by others' success or perspectives Because our sense of self isn't contingent on being perceived as the smartest, most accomplished person in the room. The hidden truth here is that real confidence is actually more about how we relate to others than how we feel about ourselves. It's about the recognition that we don't need to diminish someone else to preserve our own worth. This realization often comes as a revelation to those who've been caught in the exhausting cycle of comparison and performance. Consequences for others. Actions indeed underscore respect. When we hold people accountable without shaming them, we honor their agency and capacity for growth. Real confidence allows us to address issues directly without the emotional charge that comes from feeling personally attacked. The impact of shifting from performative confidence to authentic self-assurance ripples through every aspect of our lives. Work relationships become more collaborative. Personal connections deepen because we're no longer filtering ourselves through the lens of how will this make me appear. Instead, we bring our whole selves, imperfections and all, to our interactions. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining how confidence intersects with vulnerability and why combining these seemingly opposite forces creates the most powerful presence in any room. The misconception that vulnerability weakens our position has led many down the path of false bravado, but the truth is actually quite different. If you're recognizing these patterns in your own life or in people around you, write "unveiling confidence" in the comments below. To command respect, one must often move through discomfort initially. This journey isn't always smooth sailing. It requires us to venture beyond our comfort zones into territories that might make us uneasy. Think about the times when you've had to assert boundaries with someone who constantly interrupted you. That first moment of saying, "I'd like to finish my thought," before moving on can feel almost physically painful. Yet it's in these moments of discomfort that our transformation begins. What's fascinating about respect is how it operates as an invisible currency in our relationships. We all feel when it's present or absent, yet many of us struggle to articulate exactly what creates or diminishes it. I've observed that people who command genuine respect aren't necessarily the loudest or most authoritative in the room. They're often the ones who've mastered the delicate balance between self-assurance and genuine consideration for others. The hidden truth about earning respect lies in consistency. Your actions need to align with your words day after day. This alignment creates a foundation of trust that others can sense, even if they can't immediately identify why they feel drawn to your presence or influenced by your perspective. I remember working with a client who struggled with being taken seriously in her executive role. While she initially believed she needed to become more forceful and dominant, her breakthrough came when she instead focused on becoming unshakable in her convictions while remaining receptive to input. The shift was subtle, but profound. Her team began approaching her differently, not because she demanded respect, but because she embodied qualities that naturally elicited it. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic by examining the psychological mechanisms behind respect. What's happening in our brains when we encounter someone who commands our respect versus someone who demands it? The neural pathways activated are entirely different, creating either resistance or receptivity. The respect transformation requires conscious effort because it involves rewiring patterns that may have been with us since childhood. Many of us developed certain behaviors, perhaps becoming people pleasers or overcompensating with aggression, because these strategies served us in some way. Recognizing these patterns isn't enough. We must intentionally practice new behaviors, even when they feel foreign. What's particularly powerful about this work is that it ripples outward. As you develop self-respect and begin commanding respect from others, you unconsciously give permission to those around you to do the same. I've witnessed entire workplace cultures shift when even one person begins this journey with sincerity and persistence. Remember that commanding respect isn't about controlling others. It's about showing up with such clarity and consistency that others naturally respond differently to your presence. The decisions you make daily, how you speak, how you listen, how you respond to challenges, these accumulate into your reputation and the level of respect you command. If you're finding these insights resonate with your own experiences with respect in your relationships or workplace, write in the comments. This respect journey speaks to me. I'm curious to hear which aspects of commanding respect you find most challenging in your own life. This transformation isn't just about adopting new techniques or reciting affirmations in the mirror. It's about fundamentally shifting how you move through the world each day. When you really think about it, confidence isn't something people are simply born with. It's cultivated through a series of small daily decisions that eventually reshape your entire self-perception. I've witnessed this journey countless times with people who once couldn't make eye contact during a simple conversation, but later found themselves speaking comfortably in front of crowds. The hidden truth that most confidence gurus won't tell you is that the path isn't linear. You'll have days when you feel like you've regressed completely. That's not failure, it's part of the natural rhythm of personal evolution. What fascinates me most about confidence building is how it creates a ripple effect across every area of your life. As your social anxiety diminishes, you might notice yourself making bolder career moves, setting healthier boundaries in relationships, or finally pursuing that passion project you've kept on the back burner. These interconnected improvements aren't coincidental. They're the natural byproducts of your expanding sense of self-worth. Now, I want to go even deeper into this crucial aspect of the confidence journey. Many people mistakenly believe that confidence means never feeling fear. Nothing could be further from reality. The most genuinely confident people I've studied throughout my research still experience nervousness and self-doubt. The difference is in how they process and respond to these feelings. Consider this perspective shift. What if anxiety isn't your enemy, but simply energy that needs direction? The physical sensations of anxiety, increased heart rate, heightened alertness, surge of energy, mirror excitement in many ways. The next time you feel social anxiety bubbling up before an interaction, try this subtle mental reframing. This isn't anxiety crippling me, it's my body preparing me for something meaningful. This mindset adjustment doesn't happen overnight, but with practice, it becomes more natural. Each time you choose to stay in a slightly uncomfortable social situation rather than retreat, you're essentially telling your brain, "See, we survived this. It wasn't as threatening as you thought." These small victories gradually recalibrate your threat detection system to be more accurately aligned with reality. The revelations that emerge during this process often surprise people. Many discover that what they perceived as others' judgment was merely their own critical inner voice projected outward. Others realize that the perfect social performance they were striving for was unnecessary. Authentic connection happens when we allow ourselves to be imperfectly human. If you've been nodding along as I've been explaining these concepts, type "ready for change" in the comments below. Now, let's explore how these principles apply in specific challenging situations that tend to trigger social anxiety. If you've made it this far with me, I think we've established something important together. This journey toward authentic confidence isn't just theoretical for you. You're genuinely ready for transformation. I'd love to continue supporting you through this process. If this conversation has resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel for more insights on personal growth and overcoming social anxiety. I share new perspectives weekly that build upon these foundations we've discussed today. If you connected with this message, drop "The journey begins now" in the comments. It'll help me know which topics are truly making an impact. I appreciate you staying with me through these deeper reflections. If you found value here, a like helps others discover this conversation too. I've actually explored how to apply these exact principles in challenging social situations in my next video. Click right here and let's continue this conversation where I break down specific strategies for those moments when anxiety feels most overwhelming.